Hello my friends and welcome back and happy Monday to you. We're going to continue the surviving game. We're going to survive Monday and this whole week together, I promise you that. But today, the topics are a little bit more serious because there was a massive attack against Moscow. Now I cannot say certain words in this video, so I'll give you all of the information about the attack on Moscow, Crocus City Hall. It was an attack on Russian civilians in Moscow going to a concert. Gunmen entered the building. If you have played Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, the mission No Russian, when 5 men in an elevator are going into the airport, it was exactly like that. It was almost like the shooters played the game and then copied the mission one by one. We'll go through everything, so by the end of this video you know exactly what happened, when it happened and why it happened. But first of all, what happened? I'll give you a very short summary. On 22nd of March, around 8 p.m. Moscow time, about 6,000 people were seated at Moscow's Crocus City Hall and are waiting for the start of the concert by the Soviet-era rock band Picnic. Apart from the concert hall, thousands of people were present in the shopping center of Crocus City Hall. So it's a big concert house, but also a shopping mall. So it's a huge, massive building. Suddenly, gunshots and panic screaming were heard from one side of the concert hall as the people started escaping from the other gates, while some attempted to take shields behind the seats of the concert hall. And we have videos of all of this. Almost every stage of the attack has been filmed by the attackers themselves and the people who were in that hall. Some of them actually perished, civilian casualties. It is one of the most videographed attacks in this category, the T word, which I cannot say. All of the video links are in the description below, so if I cannot show it or it's blurred here, you can just go in the description, click on the link and look at all of these videos. But do it at your own discretion because they are quite disturbing. Suddenly there were bangs behind us, shots, a witness told the news agency Reuters, describing the panic in the situation and how everyone was running to save their lives. Everyone was screaming, everyone was running, he added. 4 camouflaged gunmen were shooting at the crowd with automatic weapons and also used grenades to conduct multiple explosions in Moscow Crocus City Hall. In other videos on social media, the gunmen can be seen shooting people at the shopping center. I've looked through all of these videos so you wouldn't have to, and they are gruesome. These gunmen, they did not care what they shoot at and how many people they shoot at. They just went and emptied all of their magazines one by one to anybody they could see. They also were carrying grenades and some kind of incendiary devices, and they set the whole building ablaze, and by the time it was extinguished, most part of the huge Crocus City Hall building was burned, and it actually collapsed from 2 places. Cold turkey may be great on sandwiches, but there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor. We're talking about my sponsor, Fume. And they look at a problem in a different way. Not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air, and instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it? Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. It fills the void in a natural, guilt-free way. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial that is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, which is helpful for de-stressing while breaking your bad habit. Base was launched in January. It's a weighted stand to rest your Fume on when not in use, with a magnet inside that keeps your Fume attached. The Fume device can be spun around on it, which is good for fidgeting. And I love the fidgeting part. My friends, look at all these different tastes. They are so cool and they taste amazing. I can have a different taste each day if I want to. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. And there's no reason that can't be you. Join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits. Try FUM.com and use the code Estonian to save an additional 10% off on your order today. Thank you, Fume, for sponsoring today's video. And finally, Russian security agencies, including special forces, rushed to the Crocus City Hall as the news broke. And as per reports, the two gunmen were caught after a car chase while a hunt was launched to locate others who reportedly ran towards the forest. Now, this is just a very simplified report of what happened. There are details that are very disturbing and very suspicious in all of that. For example, I'll open up the thing with the fact that Russian special forces entered the building 1.5 hours later when the shooting started. So at all, security services arrived at the location 1 hour later, and there is no explanation for it because it was 8 p.m. The traffic was not bad at all in Moscow at that time, and their headquarters or security services headquarters were located only 10 minutes away. But they arrived 1 hour away and then still waited 30 minutes before going in. Very suspicious. Now, there are countless details. We're going to go through them one by one, and now I'm going to open up Putin's reaction to it, because the West reacted almost immediately. Every Western country, United States reacted almost immediately, and Ukraine reacted. If they condemned the attack, or if they claimed that Ukraine has nothing to do with it, or if they expressed condolences to the families of the casualties. But Putin was silent, and he was silent for a long time. The Western countries, most of them had reacted within 2 to 3 hours of the attack, but Putin took up to 20 hours to say anything. The president of Russia finally addressed Russian citizens 20 hours later after the attack. The entire Russian leadership and security services have begun spreading information that the attackers had planned escape route to Ukraine. This detail is being highlighted as the main piece of information related to the attacks. Blaming Ukraine helps obscure the failure of the Russian state structures in both prevention and response. Both were neglected, almost non-existent. The response was extremely slow, and the prevention, we'll get to it. There's some juicy details in the prevention process of this attack. But why did Putin take 20 hours to respond to an attack that was similar in a way to the 2001 in New York for the United States? I mean, of course the numbers are different, but the scale and ferocity of this is quite similar. Why did Putin take almost an entire day to react to it? I'll read you a thread of analysis. It's telling that it took Putin nearly 20 hours to address the nation about this devastating attack. In a crisis demanding immediate leadership, he failed to promptly offer words of sympathy and condolences. But he did report to dictator Lukashenko about the detention of suspects. So he did that, but he didn't address the nation. They try to convince us that 87% of voters supported Putin just a week ago. Putin knows all too well that he has no real constituents, no one to answer to. His power doesn't come from the people, but from the security forces, election commissions. Otherwise, he wouldn't behave this way. It's a complete failure of a police state. In a nation where every move is watched, the horrific attack shows that true security remains elusive. A police state's obsession with control leaves its people vulnerable to real dangers. While Ukraine has denied any involvement in this attack, the Kremlin's predictable response will be to dehumanize Ukrainians by linking them to the attack, mobilizing for retaliatory strikes, searching for internal enemies. There is no evidence linking this attack to Ukraine in any way right now, but Russian propaganda, Medvedev, Simonyan, Putin, they all try to find any small detail that could be connected to Ukraine and just highlight that. For example, they said that 2 of the suspects were caught on their way to Ukraine. Well, actually, it was later revealed that they were on their way to Belarus, not Ukraine. And all of the suspects, we'll get to it later, who are the suspects, they're not connected to Ukraine in any way. They're mostly Tajikistan citizens. And there is one juicy details about who did it, which I will not reveal right now. But the truth of the matter here is Ukraine has nothing to do with this attack. But looking at Russian response and the dictator Putin's response, they will do their best to just make up some excuses or link Ukraine to every small detail about this attack. So in this way, Putin can use this attack to gather sympathy around the world, even in the West, to gather sympathy among Russian people as the victim of this attack. Russia is not the aggressor in Ukraine, they're a victim of an attack. So this way he will gather his people around him and consolidate power, and then he perhaps can use this even to mobilize against an outside threat and just guide the hatred towards Ukraine, although Ukraine has nothing to do with it. So in this case, why even should Putin have wanted to stop this attack? I mean, after all, United States very publicly, worldwide very publicly warned Russian citizens, especially in Moscow, to stay away from public places, and they did it 2 times. And you know how Putin responded. He claimed this was a try to destabilize the country and the power structure in Russia by the United States. And then this attack happened. So United States actually warned its, let's call it enemy, Russia, against this attack, and it was ignored. So Putin has every reason actually to want this attack, and I'll read you a thread on it. Okay, what makes the whole ISIS attack story different? The Russian reaction. Number 1. After the United States warning on such attacks, Putin openly called it blackmailing and accused the West and Ukraine of preparations of the attacks. Number 2. Now Moscow pushes Ukraine version of all costs. There's nothing linking Ukraine to these attacks, but the propagandists are taking every small detail and trying to force some Ukrainian connection out of it, because they're trying to consolidate Russian people behind their backs, behind Putin's backs, against Ukraine. So this attack can be used to consolidate people into one goal, which is mobilization against Ukraine. In this way, Putin doesn't want to stop this attack because it helps his narrative. He doesn't even need to do a false flag, if this wasn't a false flag. Because he can use this attack the same way as if any false flag against his own people, to consolidate power and to guide hatred towards Ukraine. 5 days after Putin's election and 2 days after he announced mobilization, Putin desperately needs not only an event for Russia's consolidation, he needs an event which sparks sympathy to his nation in the West. And he got it. Even the most critical voices hug him now. Yes, because we have Western countries' leaders who actually expressed condolences to the families of the deceased ones, and of course because they are civilians and they are in mourning right now, and I would also express my condolences. But this gathering sympathy for Russian people is also gathering sympathy for Putin, because these people, a lot of them voted for Putin. So in this way he got sympathy from the West and sympathy from his own people because of this attack. So he has no interest in stopping these such attacks if he can use them to guide the people's hatred towards his goals, which is hating Ukraine and mobilizing against Ukraine. So why should Putin stop the attack if he was not directly behind it? Yes, because that is also a possibility. It was in his interests. Nobody talks about his missile terror against Ukraine anymore. Look at the head of the Greens in Germany. He was not triggered by Odessa, but is triggered by Moscow. Well, yeah, Odessa was bombarded and huge civilian casualties happened. But when the same thing happens in Moscow against Russia, suddenly the head of the German Green Party expresses condolences, but he did not do so to Odessan casualties, which was a similar attack by Putin against Ukrainian civilians. So this attack in the bigger scale benefits Putin almost in every way. So for the world, the Russians will push a story: we both are fighting against Islamist terror. We are victims too, like they did after the Twin Towers in 2001, having managed to silence the world on Russia's genocide of the Chechens. For example, my friends, in this video we can see the coming weeks after the 2001 Twin Towers, where the whole world was consolidated behind the United States' backs to fight against this common enemy the United States named. Putin was also visiting grounds here. You can see it on this video. He was expressing his condolences to the loss of the families of the civilian casualties. But what he did after that? Well, in 1999, he bombarded 5 Russian apartment buildings in Moscow, blew them up in a false flag FSB operation, and used that false flag operation to start the second Chechen war. He blamed the Chechens, then he took the army in for the second time. He gave Russian people a victory in Chechnya, occupying Chechnya, consolidating his people's belief in him. We have a leader now who is capable of military victory. He played this whole game. But the timing was perfect for him because the world was very anti-Islamic back then after the 2001 bombardment, and Chechens are Muslims. Right now, they're one of the only Muslim regions in Russia with Ingushetia and other smaller Muslim regions. So Putin could attack Chechnya and commit genocide against Grozny, bombarding it to the ground without world blinking an eye because Muslims were not really popular at the time. Putin used that hatred and just silently took the whole Chechnya, and Ramzan Kadyrov is a dictator ever since. Now is the similar. This is Putin's handwriting, false flag FSB handwriting, and the Crocus City Hall attack in Moscow has it all over. It doesn't matter who did it. Was it ISIS? Was it Chechens? Was it FSB? It doesn't really matter because Putin can decide, because he controls all of the narrative in Russia. He can decide who is to blame for it. If he will blame Ukraine, that's how majority of the Russian people will take it. So, don't really matter who did it. It benefits his narrative. We'll explore another detail, actually, why it took 1.5 hours for Russian special services in the Russian capital, in the, let's call it, safest and most secure city of Russia, most surveillance cameras in Russia, most security forces, took them 1.5 hours to actually enter the building. Crocus City Hall in Moscow, the Rosgvardia, or the personal guard of Putin, let's call it like that. The Rosgvardia military base for the city of Moscow is located 4.4 kilometers or 9 minutes away by car from the area of the attack, Crocus City Hall. 1.5 hours passed before they entered the building. There is no explanation for this. There is no excuse for this. This is why the security forces exist, to react to this kind of events very fast, immediately, to prevent them actually. And if you can't prevent them, react to them very fast. Neither did happen. It also points that Putin wants this. It's in his interest because he needs to consolidate his people behind his back. He needs to play the Russians against Ukrainians using such attacks. Again, my friends, all of the videos, everything is in the description below. I cannot show most of the footage here, but you can go and watch it yourself. I'll just guide it to the description. Well, all of the links, just follow them. On this video, if you go to the description at least, you will see the first suspect detained, and what he said is, they promised me 1 million rubles in exchange for killing everyone in the hall. I arrived from Turkey on March 4th. All of these confessions are on camera. So Putin is a little bit, or the FSB is shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, because if they want to blame Ukraine, they shouldn't air these confessions, because the man clearly doesn't look Ukrainian, doesn't speak Ukrainian, even barely speaks Russian, says that he arrived from Turkey and that there's no connection to Ukraine, but Putin heavily wants to blame Ukraine. So releasing such videos, which the FSB has done a lot, there's like hours of footage of the suspects and everything of this attack. I mean, it's just the information narrative is controlled really poorly, honestly, about this attack for FSB. 1 hour after attack, only 1 hour, when there was no information available and the special forces hadn't even entered the building yet, Medvedev already made a video claiming that it was the Ukrainians, and death by death, I quote Medvedev, death answered by death. We will destroy the whole country. This should be our new goal in Ukraine. He claimed that they will bombard the entire Ukrainian country to the ground. Nobody knew who did it. Nobody knew what was going on. And Medvedev already started pointing a finger. This means that everyone in the Putin's power structure knows how the game is played. Whatever happens, whoever does it, we blame the Ukraine. We blame Ukraine and we blame the West. We consolidate Russian people behind our backs. That's the game. So it don't really matter what form the attack takes, who does it or what's the ideology behind it. Because if you control the narrative in the media, you can always guide people to hate Ukraine. What's really funny about this is that according to Kremlin's propaganda, it was ISIS. It was an Islamist attack. According to Kremlin's propaganda, Ukraine did it. So now, according to Kremlin's propaganda, Ukraine is now a Jewish-led, gay Islamist neo-Nazi state. Yes, this is all of the things, all of the words in this one sentence are words that Russian propaganda has heavily used for Zelensky and the Zelensky's government. They call it the regime. So in their eyes, all of these contradictory words to each other is the Ukrainian leadership. I'll read it again because it's priceless. Jewish-led gay Islamist neo-Nazi state. And look at Zelensky right here. I can't. Now how Russia really sees this situation. And this is what really happened. We begin with United States saying about 2 weeks ago and then about 3 days ago before the attack, 2 times they said it. ISIS is about to attack you. Russians said, and Putin, we have a video of Putin calling it blackmail. Russians said, liars. ISIS, we attacked you. Russia, this must have been Ukraine. Ukraine, it wasn't us. ISIS, it was us. Russians, here is a van with Ukrainian plates. And hey, we haven't even gotten to the van. We'll get to it, but it already ruins the joke because now everybody says they're from Belarus. It's a Belarusian license plate, which it was. ISIS, it was us. Russians, we arrested guys from enter a third country here. It doesn't matter which country. The third country says, no, you didn't. ISIS says for the 5th time, it was us. And the Russians say now that it was the Americans and the Ukrainians. This is the game that Russia is playing, and since they control the narrative and Russian people mostly are sheep who just believe it, they can blame whoever they want. They blame Ukraine and America. Now, my friends, this is the van. The special forces are crowding the scene and they suddenly find a van about 1.5 hours later and everybody's waiting for information. And then the FSB releases information that this is a Ukrainian license plate van. So why is there a suspicious white van with a Ukrainian license plate? Oh, we have the Ukrainian connection now. Ukraine did it. Oh, it was the Jewish gay Zelensky who did it. But they released a video heavily blurring the license plate. If it was Ukrainian license plate, why blur it? Show it. Show your proof. But they didn't. And later, they made a mistake and we suddenly saw the license plate. It's a Belarusian van. It's not even a Ukrainian van. So it was a huge, again, mistake by the FSB. I mean, they're not really thorough with their stuff. It's just a Belarusian van, Belarusian plates, which they just claimed it's Ukrainian plates. I mean, what? How hard would it be to plant a Ukrainian plate here? they messed up. See, here they're saying that it's a Ukrainian van, and actually it is a Belarusian van. The FSB should do their homework before committing these false flag operations, because it has FSB handwriting all over it. And you know why else? It has FSB mistakes also all over it. FSB is kind of sloppy. They do the thing, but they leave mistakes all over it because it's the Russian way of doing things. They do it, but you can see the breadcrumbs and the hints everywhere. It's not like very secret. This is a Ukrainian system plate. This is a Belarusian system plate. If you look at this one, it has the dash. It's the Belarusian plate. So yeah. So what can we expect to change? Why? I mean, we have already read some threads of why this attack was benefiting Putin, but what can change? Well, Putin already declared that they will mobilize 500,000 new men into the army, creating 2 entire new army groups focusing on Ukraine and on the West. Where do they get that 500,000 troops or soldiers, civilians actually? I don't know. But to get them, you need to use force. To use force, you need at least some kind of a reason. And if your country is attacked and you can blame Ukraine for it, that's your reason. So Putin will possibly use this attack, which has nothing to do with Ukraine, to connect it to Ukraine and to mobilize his people into these 2 new army groups that he announced about 2 weeks ago. Also, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for Kremlin, or Mr. Mustache Man, as I call him, because he has this famous mustache. He's just Putin's mouthpiece. He, for the first time in his life and in ever, Kremlin's official narrative, he used the word war in Ukraine. So immediately after this attack, the wording changes. It's not a special military operation anymore, it's war. So if it's war, different rules applies. Also, according to Russian constitution, different mobilization laws apply if it's not a special military operation, but war. It changes legally everything. So what we can expect is Putin mobilizing mentally and also physically mobilizing Russian people into the army now, using this attack as an attack against the Russian nation and Russian security. We need to defend our country. Let's take 500,000 men. Now, my friends, finally, I'll just slap you with a hardcore proof. ISIS claimed the attack. They actually published about 3 to 4 hours later, they published an official claim that they were behind it, and no, like the world believed them, but Russia was like, oh shit, we have already blamed Ukraine and now ISIS claimed it. It's really bad, unprofessional diplomacy if we make miscommunications like that. So Russians were like, no, it was not ISIS, it was Ukraine. And then ISIS was like, what the hell? We did it. We showed you, like, do you want proof? And then they released all of the videos taken by the guys actually doing the shooting. This is empirical proof that ISIS was behind it. Now, if the ISIS was deployed by the FSB or controlled by the FSB or these attackers, this is yet to be shown. It still can be a false flag. What is true is that the West and Ukraine has nothing to do with it, since Ukraine would not benefit with this attack. Only Putin will. Ukraine will not benefit if Putin can consolidate people behind him, and this attack allows him to do it. Ukrainians are not stupid. They know that giving such attacks to Putin will allow him to get stronger, so they wouldn't do it at all. Americans know this also. But the people, you know, they're sheeps in Russia. They believe what they believe. Now we looked at this huge attack against Moscow, and I'll be opening up on this topic and analyzing this throughout this week, every day, because new information is coming up, and this will change the war in Ukraine, since it changes Putin's ability to use his human resources in the country, or meat. It gives him more maneuverability to take meat from Russia and send it to Ukraine. So I'll be analyzing and bringing you all of the information up until Friday about this attack. Now, my friends, I'll bring you a completely different topic, which is about Russia's weapon export. And it's written about Joni Askola, the NAFO guy who I've gone to Ukraine with. Thank you, Joni, for this analysis. Russia was the second biggest weapons exporter before the war in Ukraine started, the full-scale invasion at least. There were 31 countries buying Russian weapons regularly, or let's say yearly. Now that number has dropped to 12 in 2023, and now in 2024 it drops even lower. So Russia has lost about 50%, actually 53% to be exact, from their weapons export partners compared to the periods of 2014 to 2018. And now in 2019 to 23, 53% less, which is huge amount of money. Their oil exports have dropped, gas exports have dropped, and now they cannot sell weapons to half of their clients that they used to. First of all, because they cannot make them that fast, and second of all, because their weapons are proven to be quite ineffective in Ukraine, and third of all, they need all of their weapons in Ukraine. They're actually physically not able to manufacture more of them, since everything that is made is sent to Ukraine. 3 reasons why they have been proven to be very unpredictable partner in weapons deals. And if you're buying weapons, obviously these are very expensive deals for any kind of weapons, usually anywhere. Military is expensive. If your partner is unreliable, unpredictable, and their weapons are proven to be on battlefield to be not as effective as they claimed, even for the high price range that the Russians are asking for some systems, you don't want to buy from them anymore. On the other hand, United States and South Korean weapons, which have been periodically tested and sent to Ukraine and have proven themselves. For example, Bradley, 50 years old, half a century old infantry fighting vehicle, armored personnel carrier, whatever you call it, has proven itself to be able to take down T-90s, Russian main battle tanks, which are mass-produced, the newest ones. T-14 Armata does not exist. So United States weapons, Swedish weapons, South Korean weapons, some German weapons have proven to be very useful, and Russian weapons the opposite. So Russia loses weapons export partners while the West gains them. My friends, I have to apologize for beginning the week with such atrocious news, but I cannot ignore this, and I'll try to deliver it to you as light as possible, to analyze it as much as possible, and not to waste your energy on negative emotions. I'll just try to give it to you as light as possible, because you need to feel good. Otherwise, there's no way to exist. You need to feel good, and even if you watch this war and analyze it, you still need to feel good mentally. And my friends, now, like in every video, my Buy Me a Coffee page is in the description below. And it's after the deletion of Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee has really worked well as of now. So if you become member, a regular member, like monthly member, I'll be butchering your name, and I'll be doing it right now. So get ready. We have Jesus Godinez, we have Lucas Ruosk. We have Josep Leonard Hartmann. Sapparingia. We have Felix Trekat. And Felix Trekat, I know the guy, actually we talk on email sometimes. He actually has bought quite many drones for Ukraine. I delivered them in January and in November. So Felix Trekat, you're a cat, but I know your owner. And he has given a lot of drones to Ukraine. Jule A. Ben, Ramon Jarapa, Someone, and finally David Okert. Thank you to these people. The names have been butchered. Consider them butchered to oblivion. If you want your name to have the same fate, then become a member of Buy Me a Coffee. Until my next video, my friends, which is tomorrow, subscribe and push the bell button to be notified about my videos. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.